And now we're going to continue our kind of series with Zach Ferenbaugh. We kind of broke that interview up because there's so much good information there. We're going to continue our series and our conversation with Zach of the Hunting Public. We'll jump into maybe some hunting stuff here a little bit. What's your take on hunting mornings in the early season? We've had some recent controversy on our end about hunting mornings and if you should or if you shouldn't. What's your take on hunting mornings in the early season? And by early season, I mean like September, like those early openers when they're coming out of velvet and that kind of thing.
I think that, it is, depending on how you go about your scouting, I think. I think of hunting all day any time of the year is worth it. But, you can kind of stage it up in a couple different ways. If you're hunting more dense, type of timber, like let's say you were in an early opener, like I know you guys being in Nebraska, you get the real early opener, but like even something, we'll just start with like a dense setting, like a dense timber setting, which you would find in like the early opener of like Minnesota or Wisconsin. A lot of the time in that situation, maybe you're able to do a lot of off-season scouting and you feel confident that you know where the deer are bedding. If that's the case, I think being close to bedding in the morning during early season is just as good as being in it later in the season, later in the day, later in the evening. Like, I think that if you know and you feel confident that they're in there, you want to be close no matter what. I think that it definitely helps your odds if you got cooler days, like if your morning hunts are going to be cooler that early part of the season, I don't think it hurts to get into a bedding area and kind of hang out. Another thing you can do in the morning in that type of setting, like a more dense setting, is just kind of still hunt through areas and try to find fresh sign to set up on for the evening. So, let's say you're in crop country and kind of like similar stuff maybe that we'd hunted together in Iowa, Brody. Where you got ag and timber, and the deer are kind of bedding for the most part in that time of the year. Maybe they're bedding still, or they're bedding back in the dense cover, so you can assume that they're feeding somewhere out there in those bigger ag sources. Maybe you kind of hang back, glass field in the morning, and then after all the deer kind of move off and go back to bed, then you walk the perimeter of those things, and maybe that tips you off to say, okay, there's some hot sign, feeding sign that's telling me there's deer feeding here, so where are they bedding? And then maybe you can look at your map and say, okay, like, kind of just makes sense that they would, right here on this scrape on this field corner, they may just follow this ridge right back in there, and they're probably just bedded, 200 or 300 yards back in the timber. That's a good way to kind of map things out. Then, in like a Nebraska setting, for example, where you got a lot of open country, you may get up on a high point in the morning and glass things and just kind of see what everything's doing, especially if you're really in like a spot stalk type situation. Just getting up to that high point and kind of mapping things out and seeing what everything's doing. It may tip you off for that night or the next day or even the next weekend or whatever it may be. I think that spending the mornings doing one of those things is definitely important, but the other thing, like we've had success doing in the past, is just getting super aggressive in the morning and hardcore scouting stuff early like that, trying to bump stuff. I think early in the season, deer are just as much on a pattern of bedding as they are feeding, and it's easy to pick out the feeding because the feeding generally is happening like leading up to the season. It's happening in daylight, that last hour or two of daylight. A lot of times the deer are hitting a destination food source, but it's really a lot harder to predict the bedding. But if you can bump one out of a bedding area, I think a lot of times he's going to go right back to that until there's like continuous pressure just like knocking on his door saying, he might move off and do something else. But if he's kind of got himself, I guess I think of it, a lot of it is if they're on a consistent feeding pattern, it kind of makes sense to be on a consistent bedding pattern close to that food source, right? So it's like if a mature buck, for example, is bedding in an alfalfa field, August 20th till September 1st on the opener, and you bump him on September 1st out of that bed that he's using close to that alfalfa field, it's like he's probably just going to be there on September 2nd. It's like he's been doing it for the last 10 days, but at this point, if he hasn't been hunted, one bump isn't necessarily enough to bump him out of there completely. So, I mean, there's a number of different tactics that you can do, but I'm a big proponent of just trying to hunt as much as you can, especially if you're only able to hunt a couple days out of the week. Why not take advantage of that in some fashion, even if it's just kind of sitting back and watching from a distance. So that's kind of my take on it.
Yeah, that's something, the bumping of deer, or like going in and in-season scouting, that's something me and Chance talked about doing this year. It's like, if we aren't seeing any things on the spots we thought we were seeing them, we're like kind of stupid to not like go try to bump one or figure out where they're at. Because if you bump one, then you know where he's at. And like some of the stuff you said we hadn't thought of, but like thinking about how he's been on that pattern for a while and is probably coming back. So that's something we thought about doing too.
Yeah, I think it's worth it, man. I mean, that buck that we killed in the first year, and my first time hunting Nebraska in 2017, when it was me, you, and Jake, like, we would have never killed that buck had we not bumped him out of that bedding area. I mean, it's an unorthodox tactic, but I mean, if anybody listening doesn't know, it's like the kind of the gist of that story, short version of it is that we had went into an area that we felt was overlooked, mostly because we were overlooking it, and we did a little mini, like a wind bump in there, trying to kick deer out the other side, and we did it successfully as far as kicking the deer out, but we didn't get them to go past. Well, I was trying to bump deer to you, Brody, and the buck flipped out the side of the drive, I guess, and he went up and over, but that tipped us off to say, hey, there's a nice bucket here. And when I was in the middle of that bedding area, I'd already blown him out, so I just did a bunch of really defined scouting. I was trying to find exactly where the beds were, and I just kind of got right in the heart of it and was sitting in the bed seeing what they could see, and realized that they couldn't really see much. If we just got ourselves into that bedding area, we'd have a chance of deer moving around throughout the morning, and ended up hunting it. I think we took a day off of it and gave it a day rest, and then we hunted it two evening, or I think we hunted it a morning, an evening, and then a morning, and ended up shooting what we believe to be the same buck that we bumped out of there. I guess it would be 2 or 3 days later. So, 3 days later. So, I mean, that's just one of those situations where, our unorthodox tactic definitely put us in a game where otherwise we were still kind of at the drawing board, I guess, a little bit, where we were just still trying to find a buck, but that was giving us confidence to go in there and hunt in an area where a buck was. And it was evident when we went in there, there was just sign everywhere. I mean, there were so many fresh rubs, and at that time of the year, we ended up killing the buck on September 20th. But at that time of the year, there's so little sign out there, especially rubs specifically. There's just not that many days that the buck's been out of velvet, so they haven't been making fresh rubs for very long. So when you find that hot time, there's really no better time to get in on it and hunt it. It's kind of what makes September one of my favorite times to hunt deer. It's just it's kind of obvious where they're at when they're laying that fresh sign down, because you just don't get, it could be October 15th and you think you're on fresh sign, but I mean, it could be a couple weeks old and you just barely missing it, but that's not true in September. So
yeah, and that's one of the things that I've taken from watching you, Zach, is just do kind of do what you want. You can get outside of the traditional hunting thinking and still have success. Like, you don't have to do what everybody else does. If you want to, like Zach's doing the ground hunting thing and doing it really well, it's just like, do what you want, do what works for you. You can do untraditional stuff, and it can work if you're doing it in the right way. And that's just the one thing I've taken from you is, if I want to go get down and scout at 10 o'clock when I know there's nobody else hunting, and I feel like that's going to help my hunting, it's something that, I feel like now I do, but I wouldn't have done before.
Yeah, and I think that makes me happy to hear, mostly because I felt like for a long time I wasn't allowed to do those things. It's like, well, you better sit, you better not move around or whatever, and it's like, it wasn't satisfying, like, what I wanted to get out of hunting completely. So, doing all that, and changing it up and just getting out there and just doing something different, I guess, really has made it that much more fun to me. So, I think of it like, hunting was already really fun, but now that I'm doing more of just what I want and kind of feeling like I don't have as much of an agenda that I have to, or, like a rule book that I have to follow, I just been having a lot more fun, and it keeps getting more fun, and I keep feeling like I'm honing in kind of like my style, I guess, a little bit. One thing that I've really noticed, and I can honestly say, you can kind of take this anywhere with any form of hunting, or any, I guess, maybe form's not the word, but any type of hunting, like any type of animal, or whether it's like deer, turkey, elk, pronghorn, just doing like kind of going against the grain in general is like always something that I'm trying to do a little bit. Like, how do you do something that nobody else is doing? And it may not look that much different. I mean, it may not even be like hunting on the ground is what I'm talking about necessarily. It's just like, how do I access this different? How do I basically, how do I take, I guess, what I'm seeing everybody else doing, and then just do something just enough different that it gets me out of the pattern of what humans do in this area? Because I do believe that's a huge factor in like how deer know exactly what we're doing. Like, they're onto us way more than we ever give them credit for. It's when you kind of go in the back door, or you approach it from a different direction. I mean, like, a very simple like example of what I mean is, a couple of years ago we were hunting in Alabama, and what we realized is some of the best deer habitat wasn't that far off the gravel road. So you could park really close to where, there was a lot of deer, but instead of just pulling right up to that spot, hopping out, slamming truck doors and car doors, whatever, getting and moving in, getting your gear and moving in, we parked like up the road like 3/4 of a mile, and kind of tuck the vehicle behind a hill, putting some terrain between us and where we're going, maybe a little bit of thicker vegetation, just that way, the deer aren't just listening to a vehicle pull up and already getting on edge before you even step into the woods. I think, just something simple like that. Or another thing that I like to do in hilly country is, if I can find an area where I can park low when everybody else is parking high, and maybe taking like a ridgetop trail out to a spot that they plan on hunting. I would prefer to park low and have to walk straight up, and then just kind of access from a completely different area, if that makes sense. Because, like, we're just so habitual, and then I think sometimes, again, we just take for granted, like, oh, we can get away with this. But instead of, like, having an unsuccessful hunt and asking ourselves why did we not see anything there? I think it's really easy for us as hunters to say, like, well, the spot's no good, and just like chalking it up as a loss, and that's it, and like not really breaking that down anymore. Instead, I think you should say, okay, what could I do differently? Am I doing what everybody else is doing? How can I mix it up and just, kind of get out of that everyday pattern that hunters are creating, and just getting habitual. It's a easy thing to fall into, but I think trying to think outside of the box is important.
So that was part 2 of our interview with Zach. We're going to have way more of those. We talked to him for quite a long time about some stuff, and he gave us a bunch of good info. So we're going to have more of those, but we're going to go into some of the stories we wanted to talk about a little bit here, stuff that's going on. We got one mic in the middle because we had an Adobe subscription go down. We have Google Chrome that's not working to redo another subscription, so we're only down to one mic. So if it sounds a little echoey or a little different than usual, that's why, but we're going to work with it for this one podcast and we'll get it fixed and then we'll be good. So to start off, this was an article that I found talking about the best tree stand locations for all seasons. So where, if you had to choose the best spot for, early season, the rut, and late season, where the best tree stand location would be. Obviously, it's very generalized because everything's different, but that's what the article was going through. So I thought we'd kind of just go through, for each season what we thought maybe the best tree stand locations were for, for each season, obviously. So we'll start where we should normally start, the early season, which we're in right now, September 1st. Like Brody mentioned earlier, our season just opened. So where would we usually think, or if you had to put a tree stand in one spot for the early season, where would it be? I know there's lots of variables to it. If I'm throwing out like private or public, I'd probably say like soybeans or a green food source in the early season. I mean, that doesn't always work for public land. A lot of our public land doesn't have food on it to even set up on. But if I was just like very broad generalization, that's probably what I do, because you could velvet scout if you have an early opener like we do. And by early opener, I mean September 1st opener, when they're still running in bachelor groups, coming out to those fields on that bed to food pattern pretty good before they get pressure. Food source, green food source in the early season. Yeah, I'd say just closest to the best food available. And that's closest because, like you said, some of the public we hunt, you can't get that close. You're just hoping to catch them as they're going to it, getting closer to the bedding, and then cutting them off on the direction of the food source. Sometimes you can't even get on the food source because they're, like you said, they're typically on a pattern, at least for a while, and it's best to just take advantage of it as soon as you can. And usually that food source, food to bed pattern right now, early season, is, pretty reliable anyways. So. And I think we might have mentioned that with Zach too in a conversation, or Zach mentioned that, I should say, about how reliable that bed to food pattern is, and to get them before that pressure picks up, they might be coming to that pretty regularly. Yeah, and he even mentioned that you could, this might be spoiling it, but he mentioned you could hunt them a couple times and they're probably still going to keep coming back because there's so much on that same pattern. They've been doing it for a month now. And that's kind of what we've seen this year anyways, is that food is a big factor early season, as most people probably know, but it really seems to be the driving factor of where deer are, whether it be standing corn to bed in and feed in, or soybeans or alfalfa or anything like that. So strictly field edges seems to be the problem, though, at least for access. If you're hunting, food plots or big ag fields and you're hunting along the field edge, access, for me, has always been a problem on field edges. Yeah, that's the thing we always think about when we see all those stands on public that are bordering the field and they're hunting it in the morning. Like, how are they getting in to those stands, walking the field edge, and not spooking the deer off the field that they want to see when the sun comes up? That's always something we never could figure out. And on this piece of public, there's no way to sneak in from the back, really. So they're walking a field edge and bumping the deer out. So that's something that you have to kind of think about. If you're hunting a field edge and you're going in the morning and you're walking through the field, you're bumping all the deer out that you hope to see. Then switch it around for the evening. You can get in fine, but how do you get out? They're going to know you're there. And it's like, which way, and I've always circled too, but which way do I blow my wind? Do I blow it towards the field, hoping that I'm going to shoot one before he gets to the field? But what if the does make it to the field first, and then your wind's blowing to the field? Do you blow it into the cover, hoping that the deer in the field don't smell you? But what if one's coming, from behind you to get out to the field? So it's always, wind is always a problem too, not just how you're going to access. For me, anyways, during the early season, setting up on those, food plots or big ag fields anyways. So any other options you can think of for early season places? I mean, acorns is another one for bigger woods. We don't have a lot in our part of Nebraska, acorn wise, but there is acorns in some other states, and some of those different food sources, but that's kind of similar to what we touched on. I mean, we're always talking about setting up close to bedding, and so I think that always works in whatever season, but I think the big thing's food for the early season. Yeah, we've never, hunting the oaks, we don't have a lot of opportunity to hunt, near them or use them, but we never had much success doing it. It seems like a lot of the oak places around here, they turn them on public anyways into like oak savannas, so it's wide open understory. So the bedding's just not there. So if they are using it, it's just a nighttime deal. That's obviously going to be different in places like Iowa or Ohio where they have an actual good population of oaks. The only other thing I thought is water. That's a spot we have this year is a pond spot. It's the only water around. And like Brody said, if it's hot, they're going to go get that drink of water first. If there's any bucks in the area, they're going to go there before they go anywhere else. So it acts kind of like a pinch point, especially if it's a limiting factor like the one that we're probably going to hunt this year is. It's really can be, I think, a pretty good spot.
There's something that's kind of overlooked, but if you think about it, even for like humans, like when you get up in the morning, one of the first things you do is, get a glass of milk, get a glass of water or something. Like that's the first thing you do after you get up. They're doing the same thing, and like you said, it's kind of like acts like a pinch point, even though it's not a pinch point, because any deer that may be bedded close to that water, they get up in the evening, they're probably coming down to get a drink first before they go out and try to eat a whole bunch of stuff. They've been sitting all day, they need a drink of water.
Yep, so that's just another spot I think that can be almost just as good as probably your food plots or your big ag field. So we'll move on now to rut stand locations. So typically I think it tends to be doe bedding areas, I guess is where we've seen our most success during the rut, but I was trying to think back as to where we've seen the most stuff during the rut. And the rut's typically hard on public because when everybody else shows up, so everything tends to,
and our rifle season's during the rut somewhat. So then really seeing the full-on rut time frame is kind of hard because we're not out there.
Yeah, so using like our best, thinking back to it, the high wall spot's probably the best rut spot we've seen, where we've actually seen the best rut activity, and that was just a giant doe bedding area. So I would have to think somewhere, down inside of a doe bedding area has to be, in my opinion anyways, probably the best rut spot, or where I would put a rut stand anyways.
Yeah, I think just finding the doe bedding and setting up where if there's a place where like you're always trying to hunt bucks, but you're always walking through there and you bump out like 6-7 does all the time, like maybe those little kind of hidey holes that those does are using are probably good. And I know they've talked a little bit about secluded spots. I know the hunting public guys have about finding those places a buck's going to take a doe when he's trying to get away from not only humans but other bucks, and kind of those weird spots, those as well. Those are a little harder to find.
Yeah, and then the only other option I thought was like pinch points. And here in like Nebraska and ag country, there's pinch points all over the place, like fence rows, creeks, draws, all that stuff that just pinches deer movement down, where if there's a deer coming on this side of the creek, he has to come through here. Mm-hmm. Those are always other good, cruising rut stands that are just as good as probably doe bedding areas, as they're traveling to different doe bedding areas probably anyways. So with that, we'll move on to the late season, and I guess to me, again, it just goes back to food sources. I mean, with public land, it's usually it's hard to find them. It takes us a little time to re-find where the deer are after all the pressure, after the rut, after everybody's been hunting them, going back to finding where they're at. And it's usually, if there's a food source somewhere around, which is hard to find on public, but that's usually where they are late season. It just kind of pattern reverses and it goes back to food sources.
Yeah, it kind of seems like, I don't want to say they group up like, elk or some of those bigger animals that you see out west, but they do kind of group up when they find the food. I think that's why. It's not necessarily that they're grouping up for protection, it's just that's where the food is, so they're all kind of bedding in the same areas, not moving very far, and like once you find it and find them, then you find kind of all of them, because there was times on that southern public land unit early on when it had a few more deer on there was 40 or 50 deer out there in that field that obviously weren't there all year long, yeah. But that winter and that season made them go there.
Yeah, I've done, like you just said, it's kind of a feast or famine deal. It takes a little bit of covering some ground, re-scouting to re-find them, and then once you find them, you're typically in a good spot, and there's multiple of them. It's just re-finding them that tends to be the issue for us on the public that we hunt here anyways, late season. So.
And sometimes there are places where they weren't during the season, because like that field gets hit hard that we're talking about during the season and during the rut, and everybody's hunting that field, and then all of a sudden you wouldn't think they're there because of all the pressure, and then they're back there in the winter because that's where the food is. So they're kind of trying to survive too, and they got to kind of, what are we going to do? Like stay away from the pressure, eat so I can survive.
Yep. And so that's why it's just kind of, like you said, just about re-finding them. And those are just general locations. If you had to pick general spots, like starting points for a new hunter, I guess that's where you'd say the best places to go. Everything's kind of different.
But it's always different. It's always situational. People always comment, that doesn't work here, or that works for me. Why does it not work for you? You don't know what you're talking about. But it's always situational. It's always completely different from where you're at, depending on pressure or food or all kinds of different things.
Yep. So with that, we'll move on now, kind of move through it relatively quickly.
But so this was a Field and Stream article. It was kind of like, you got a buck on camera, now what? So the author obviously went through what he would do, but I thought maybe we'd go through what our process is and at least, walk through that. So kind of, well, essentially what happened this year with us. So we're getting bucks on camera. So now what are we doing? What's our process to move forward from there? So is there anything that we look for specifically for the pictures? Like, so say we got a picture of a buck, what are we looking for? Anything in the pictures?
I've tried, I don't know if this is what you're talking about specifically, but like I've tried doing the whole weather, wind direction, like what direction he's headed kind of thing, and all I get is a bunch of data that I don't understand and can't make a pattern of. So maybe I don't have enough pictures. But I think you can kind of tell something from like maybe the direction they're headed or where they're coming from. Like I said, I've tried the weather stuff. I just look at a bunch of data that I can't figure out a pattern from. But I think you can gain something from the direction they're headed, and that probably will lead into what we're going to talk about next. But I think the big thing is for us is just getting the direction and then what time. Are you close enough when you're getting those pictures, or you have to keep working back?
Yeah, that was the two next on my list was direction. So which way are they coming from? Which is going to tell us, depending on what time it is, which direction the bedding is, depending on what time, if it's in the morning or late in the evening. And then the time is going to tell you how far away that trail camera is probably from bedding. So which way do you need to go based on where that trail camera is, which direction the deer is coming from, and then what time it is.
Yeah. And I think, it's always, could change because he could circle around you and it could throw you off, like the direction and stuff. He could be circling around. But I think the time is the biggest one for knowing, am I close enough to where he's at to catch him in daylight, or am I still too far away? And sometimes you know that going in. Like sometimes you put it on a field edge knowing that you're most likely going to get night pictures, but it's kind of a trail cam survey, seeing what you got in the area. But if you're trying to take the next steps to get closer and kill that buck, if it's still in darkness when they're coming through, you need to move closer by looking at those pictures.
Yeah, so I guess just in general, so say it's 9:30 at night and it gets dark at 7, and you're getting pictures at 9:30 of a buck coming from the left. So for us, that means he's bedding somewhere to the left. So if you move the camera or move your stand to the left, you should be catching him in daylight or closer to daylight. It's just a matter of moving through.
Yeah.
So I guess that's how we would use it. And then the same thing goes for the morning too. So if it's dark when you're catching him on camera, you know which way he's coming from, so you know where he's probably feeding if you want to use that information, or move your camera the way he's going to get closer to where he's bedding, closer to morning daylight shooting hours. So that's kind of how we use it. But the main thing, I guess, that we use trail cameras for now is just to know there's bucks in the area. We don't go too in depth on, reading into them too much or all this or all that. Obviously, it's good to see, hey, all these buck pics are, 9 o'clock in the morning during daylight. That's perfect. But usually it's just now, are there bucks that we can go after in the area? If there are, now we're good. We'll just go in and scout, scout from afar, or go in and scout, figure it out from there.
Yeah, our approach is a little different because I think we both can agree the more trail cameras we have out, the more we want to check them, then the more we do check them, and then probably the more damage we do. So we try to limit the amount of cameras we have just because we get caught up in it a little bit. But we did do it this year on a bunch of new properties just so we could see what deer were in the area. And the big thing for us is scouting. So we'll go through and scout the whole property, then hang those cameras so that we know if he's coming from behind us or left, or it's 11 o'clock, we need to move closer. We have an idea of what the area looks like and where he might be. So even if we're 500 yards away in a field and he's coming from the left, we know, hey, there was kind of that bedding area back there. That might be where he is, and then we can hang and hunt and go at it that way.
Yeah, now we don't even have to go back in. We can go check the camera once, and now we know where to go because we've already scouted it before we hung the camera.
And we have a good assumption of where he's going to be. It's not always right, obviously, but you have a good, idea of where he is. And some of it for us is our properties are small enough that that camera can only really be in one place, and we can't get too much closer. So we only got a select number of places we can go.
Yeah, and so that was kind of the next question, but was do we keep checking the cameras again? And I guess what we've done this year is if we went in and there's bucks on that camera, we haven't gone back in. We just left it. Because like I said before, all we want to know is that there's one there.
Yeah, the big thing for us is we got the information that we were looking for. We had a trail cam up that place we were velvet scouting, to see if there was bucks there. We velvet scouted, saw there was bucks there, so there was no point in checking that trail camera for us because what we wanted to know was if there were bucks there. We didn't care if it was a particular buck or a really big buck. It was just knowing if bucks were there.
We knew that, so we didn't have to check that camera because we figured out what we needed to know.
Yeah, we were just going to use that camera if we didn't see anything velvet scouting.
Yep.
And then we've seen them velvet scouting, so now we don't need the camera. It's been sitting for 2 months now, and we could probably care less if we ever go check it.
Same with the other ones. We checked it once just so we could see if there was bucks on there, if it's worth hunting. They were on there. That's what we needed to know.
Yep, that's just how we use trail cameras anyways. So we'll see how it works out this year. But and you kind of mentioned it too again, but like glassing, velvet scouting, if we know there's deer in the area, we got pictures, yes, but from far away. Like if we're going to do any sort of scouting after that, especially closer to the season, do it from far away. So
minimize your impact as much as you can.
Yeah, so like really if we just have pics, we're really just staying away until we're going in to hunt.
Mm-hmm.
So whether that's a week, like if you're doing it in season, you're getting pictures, you went and checked it. Like maybe you didn't get anything September 1st through the 20th. You went and checked it on the 21st, and now you got pictures. And maybe it's just a week of waiting, but stay out for the week, but then go in. Don't go recheck the camera to make sure he's there. Just go in and hunt it. So stay out until you have to go in. That's our strategy anyways. So,
and one thing, I don't know if you're going to get to it, but the saying we've come up with, and we said it before we started this season, is never trust a trail camera. Because there's so many circumstances where a buck could be using the trail behind your camera and you just miss him. That camera doesn't take the pictures because he runs through too fast. A whole bunch of different things to like never trust the trail camera completely. Like we had to tell ourselves that because we knew if there was no pictures, we'd be mad and we wouldn't trust the sign and stuff that we've seen. So like, don't put too much stock into what that trail camera is telling you. Use it to your advantage, but know that sometimes it's not always telling the full truth, I think.
Yeah, a lot of times. I think it's not, because like going back to the one that we velvet scouted, we hung the trail camera on what we thought was the best spot, and the spot we should have hung the camera, we talked about but didn't, and that's where all the bucks are coming out.
Yeah.
So maybe all 5 of these bucks would have been on the camera that we didn't set out, but the other camera might not have any of them on them for the last 2 months.
And if we just went off that, we think there's nothing there.
If we didn't velvet scout, like I said, we think there's nothing there. They're just 200 yards away.
Yeah, they're still on the same property,
perfectly
in
huntable.
Daylight, perfectly huntable, but maybe that trail camera's not picking them up, especially in big woods. I think too, because like you think about it sometimes here in Nebraska, we take for advantage how far we can see. Then you think about like if I was hunting in Tennessee or something, like this is woods, I couldn't even see that deer was even over there. So especially in those situations too, like they could just be 200 yards away and you not even know it.
Yeah, I don't know how many times you've been hunting somewhere like along a river or just out. It's farm ag country. You're sitting somewhere and you see deer like 100 yards away, and the next time you know we need to move that way. But I've thought to myself, if I was in thick woods, how long would it have taken me to figure out to move over there?
Yeah.
Because if I hadn't seen them, so we do have that advantage. But one thing we do like to do as far as like when we're hanging the trail camera is, like Brody mentioned, we're going and scout either before and then come back and hang the camera, or do it all at once. But we want to know what tree we're going to get in. That way, if we have the pictures on the camera, the bucks on camera, then we already know what we're doing. Yeah. We might not need the tree and there might be no deer there. But if we do, now we can just go back in, we know exactly where we're going. Kind of what you talked about.
Yeah, for the most part, we kind of hang the cameras where we think a potential tree stand might be. One, they're easy to check. If you go in and hunt, you can just grab it and you're there. You don't got to walk around a whole bunch to get them. But like you said, we're seeing if that spot would work really with the trail cameras. And like you said, we know where that spot is. So there's no looking around. There's no guessing. We know exactly where to go if that trail camera is showing us what we want.
Yeah, it just makes it easier to go in and do a hang and hunt, especially for me anyways. If I'm going in and I don't know where I'm going, I feel like I'm going to screw it up. But if I at least have a tree, maybe it's not perfect, but if I at least have a spot
you can always
where
change
I'm going,
it, but you know you have a fallback.
At least I know I can get in this tree.
Mm-hmm.
It might not be perfect that first time, or I might go there and find a better one, but if I know I at least have a tree that's going to work, I feel so much better about it. So it's just kind of, I guess to wrap it up, just weighing all the options, and all the factors that go into it based on, do we need to go back in, and check it again? Or do we get the information we need? Do we need to hang a stand right away? Do we need to wait? Are there actually deer here? Do we need to move the camera? It's just weighing all the options and factors before you kind of know what the process is afterwards. But that's kind of what we go through when we get a trail camera pick anyways. But the main thing is just for us, our main trail camera takeaway is just, are there deer in the area?
Yeah, that's the main thing we use it for. Because we're not specifically targeting a specific buck really or anything like that where we're trying to move them to track a specific buck. It's just saying, are there enough deer in this area for us to hunt it, start making moves and see what happens.
Yep. So
With that, like Brody mentioned before, it's September 1st. So if we could be hunting right now, it's 6:30 at night. We'd be in prime time right now. But like Brody said, we have jobs, so we can't get out there during the week. But we got a 3-day weekend coming up, so we're going to be definitely excited. Can't hardly wait to get out there to start this 2021 season. We'll have more, of course, podcasts coming out every Monday. We got more stuff with Zach, like quite a few more episodes with him. We're going to have sprinkle in our articles and our opinions on stuff too. But thanks for watching the Out Here Show, and make sure to go to Whitetail Instinct channel to watch the blogs from this hunting season as it happens.
Yep, all the new hunting stuff, all the actual hunting content that we've been waiting for is on our Whitetail Instinct channel.
Yep, so make sure to go over there. Check out our apparel too. We got sweatshirts and t-shirts if you want to support the Out Here Show or Whitetail Instinct, so we can keep doing it. And with that, I guess thanks for watching, guys. Make sure to tune back in, and good luck this deer season.